How's everybody doing today? Good? Smiles? Smiles? A lot of smiles. I want smiles. Smiles. So, who says what? Bart says, "Show me where your teeth used to be." Okay. Oh, I know. I can't wait. It'll be awesome. So, today I decided that I thought there was something that we really needed to talk about in our continued path for outreach, just what we need to do. So I have a teaching that I want to do, but I wanted to talk to you guys about something really quick, kind of like a mini testimony per se. Right. So here we go. So I was raised in a Christian home when I was 5 years old or 4. I don't remember. I got saved. So it's funny because everybody has their spiritual birthday. I have no idea when my spiritual birthday is. So, but it was at a Billy Graham crusade, which is really cool. And apparently I told my parents, because I don't know, I guess some people have this amazing ability to remember anything before I don't like anything before 10 years old. Like really everything before 10 years old is like a blur to me. Like it's all like the same thing. So really I don't really remember very much past that or before then. Maybe, who knows? So my parents said, you ask God into your heart, and I can remember this mostly. I can remember that there was a knowledge of God throughout my entire life, and an understanding that I wanted to be a good person, I guess is the best way to put it. So I believed I was saved. I definitely believed I did get saved then. And I was raised in a Pentecostal home, so I saw a lot of things that a lot of people would be like really amazed at seeing. Like I saw healings and things like that. Those things were normal in the church that I grew up in. Speaking in tongues was like, just like, nothing out of the ordinary. My parents would be speaking in tongues. I'd just be like, just looking up at them, just, what are you guys doing? But I knew like it was normal. It was just a normal lifestyle for me. So I mention all this just because evangelism was very key in my family. It was very huge. My dad was huge into evangelism. He was the type of guy who, go out in the streets, preach the gospel. That was it. So I was raised in that kind of a lifestyle, and it's a blessing. It's an absolute blessing to have a household like that loves Jesus and shows you the love that Jesus has. So it's just really awesome. And like the message Danny Silk taught yesterday with the Father and thing like that. Like I can't relate to that. I had an awesome father. I mean, I really had an awesome father. He was incredible, raised me right, and just, never had to ever worry about anything. So I just had a really awesome, good upbringing as a child. So, but as I go back into the evangelism aspect of it, evangelism was always very, very hard. It was very difficult. Terrified of it as a child, just didn't understand, just didn't want to talk to people at all, didn't, the occasional opportunities that I would get to speak to somebody about God were like, I got an opportunity. Okay, you have to repent of your sins, and that's kind of just how evangelism was, and it was just any moment that would occur was my opportunity to tell people what they were doing wrong and what they needed to do to get to heaven through a step process, and it was. There was, times I remember, talking to a coworker at Subway about evolution and us talking about it for 3-4 hours straight and not making any headway. And, this is what, oh, well, you planted the seed. Well, I'm sure I planted maybe a little seed, but, wasn't very much watering going on. And I remember in college, just, trying to talk to people about Jesus, but it didn't really happen all that often. The one time that I experienced like a really awesome experience was I was sitting in this car with this guy from the school, and he was just wrecking his life. And he was raised in a Christian home and just had left everything, had just left that whole Christian walk. I sat in the car and I looked at him and I said, I see you like a brother. I just showed him love, and he looked at me. There was other things that happened, but he said to me, he goes, "I'm not ready to change yet. I'm not ready to change." And I said, "Okay, I understand, but just let me know, or just to let you know, Jesus is always ready for you. He's always ready for you." And he said, thanks man, thanks a lot. And it wasn't until 2 years later that he spoke at the school in one of our churches, and it was actually the church I was a part of, and he said, Brandon changed my life. And I didn't even know, and it's not one of those things where I was like, prideful about it. I'm like, oh man, I changed his life, because it hasn't happened very often that I feel like I've changed people's lives. But out of all my evangelistic things that have happened, the simplest one is what brought him to the Lord. And he said to me, he goes, it wasn't much longer when I decided to change my life. And he didn't even know, and he goes, I just started to turn towards God, and he had no idea how much of an effect he had on me that one day. And I didn't tell him about his sins. I didn't force him. I didn't say, you better change now or you're going to hell. It'll be too late, I just kind of just revealed love, and I didn't even realize I did it. And my college life was not a particularly good one either. I was highly, very depressed. I failed most of my college classes. Just didn't do really well at all in college. God was doing some really awesome things, but it was not a particularly good time in my life. And even in the darkest time, which I would consider probably the darkest time in my life, that, I was able to reveal light, which was, pretty awesome to me. And so as I went on, I moved back home with my parents after going to school for 5.5 years. And not getting a degree. I tell people I have a master's degree in nothing, because that's exactly what it is. It's a 5.5 year. Right. So I went to college for a really long time and didn't get anything really out of it outside of just, a knowledge of, stuff. Like, I can tell you a little bit about every kind of engineering. I can tell you a little bit about business administration. I can tell you a little bit about IT. I have this like gamut of everything, and I must have had like 80 college credits in just randomness. It was just everything. So yeah. So after coming out of college, I was at home with my parents, and I still wasn't doing too well. I ended up leaving this church, deciding that I should go home and just read scriptures and not go to church, and I'd have a really good relationship with God that way. That ended up spawning the worst years of my life, where I couldn't experience the presence of God anymore. So in Psalms, when David says, I think it's in Psalms, when David says, Lord, whatever you do, I'm paraphrasing, but Lord, whatever you do not take your presence from me. He took his presence from me, and I will promise you, if you've tasted and seen, and then you can't taste and see anymore, you will destroy yourself. And so that time in my life led me into a lot of things where God was trying to show me some stuff. And so I came out of that I actually knew about Bill Johnson in college. I was 18 then. I'm 25 now. I studied Bill Johnson. I really liked him. I heard a lot about him, and I had read Spiritual Power of a Transformed Mind, which is an incredible book. I think second year has to read that. Don't you guys have to read that in second year? Yeah, it's an incredible book. Changed my life, and just really gave me a hunger for the supernatural. But what drew me to Bill Johnson was his evangelistic heart. I had experienced the supernatural in my life, but without the supernatural being accompanied with evangelism, it meant nothing to me. It had no purpose in my mind. And so I was so ingrained with it as I grew up, it had to be a part of my life. So evangelism was huge, and I always would attempt to, do it in college, but it just didn't work. It just never worked out because all I knew was the past. So coming out of college now and having terrible jobs, being practically kicked out of my house, and it just wasn't really good time in my life. I walked into Todd White, not as literally, but in a video form. And so I was just searching on YouTube because I was just, searching evangelism and things like that. And I saw Dan Mohler, a couple videos by Dan Mohler. Dan Mohler is actually Todd White's pastor. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, this guy is doing what the disciples are doing. But I didn't believe it yet. I didn't take it. I didn't absorb it. I was just like, this could be anything. This could be, this could be fake, whatever. And then it went into Todd White because I was like, oh, who's this guy? This guy looks weird. He's got dreadlocks and looks kind of funny. So let's watch him. So I watched Todd White, and I started seeing this guy, and I was like, wow, this is different. I didn't quite agree with it yet because I watched it, and I was like, he's not revealing their sins. What's going on? This isn't evangelism. And so, but people are being impacted. They're being impacted by this. And so those videos I watched were just about the ones you saw before. I had watched everyone. I had just chewed through everyone that I could find, everyone where he went out on the street and he talked, because that's all I knew was street evangelism and street ministry. So I was like, this is cool. This is awesome. And eventually I went to Voice of the Apostles. It was my first year of Voice of the Apostles. And guess who shows up? It's Todd White. He's not teaching, he's just there. And I'm like, oh, it's Todd White. Cool. I really want to talk to this guy and ask him some questions. So he's walking, and I see him walking by, and I look over at him, and I'm like, there he is. I'm just thinking, and he's far away. And I swear, guys, his eyes made contact with mine. It was like piercing. It was like, and I just saw him, and he looked at me, and he winked, and he went by, and I'd never met him before. So I was like, okay. So that's a little weird. And so it happened again, and then it happened again, and I was just walking by, and he winked. I'm like, what's the deal, Todd White? Is there something on my shirt? And so I decided I just got to go up and talk to this guy. So Voice of the Apostles, my very first Voice of the Apostles, was life-changing. It was just a really incredible experience. It was a renewal experience for me. And I walk up to Todd White, half messed up in the spirit, just like fumbling up to him, and immediately prophesies over my family. And it was just really cool. It was cool that I just didn't say anything. He just walks up and he just prophesies. And he's just standing up front, just doing his thing, and he's like, bless you, brother, and he kind of does the send me off thing. I go, wait, hold on. I go, I have to ask you a question, and he's like, sure, man, go for it. What do you want to ask? And I said, how did you start your street ministry? And he looks at me with this face, and it's one of those faces you can't really describe, I guess. It's just one of those, it's like a, not again, like that kind of face, and And he looks at me and he goes, brother, I don't have a street ministry. He goes, I live a lifestyle of Christianity. And I looked at him and it clicked. Something snapped. And it was just kind of like in that moment and in the presence of God that I was so saturated in that place, it just was like, and it just was like, I go, huh, that's awesome. I just like, that's how my mind was thinking. And he looks at me and I could tell. There was just like like he looks at me and he goes, he got it. Like he just, like that just clicked for him. Like I could tell without him saying anything that he knew I got it too. And he looks at me, he goes, you need to go to the Power and Love Conference. And had I had known he was giving me, a fourth telling word, because essentially he just literally propelled me into that destiny by what he spoke. And it was really cool. And I just walked away and I was like, wow, like I get it now. So I understood lifestyle Christianity, but I didn't understand. There was something about it that still didn't click, and that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. I came home from the conference feeling on fire for God like I never had been before, but I still didn't understand this idea of evangelism and how it applies or how it works almost. I'd seen men of God, with great faith. I was always into Billy Graham. Billy Graham was just like awesome. That was like, it was like my dad's, like, oh yeah, like watch, my dad wasn't even too into Billy Graham, but I really liked him. I thought he was really cool. So, but that's all I had known yet. I had not experienced anyone else like A.A. Allen or Catherine Kuhlman or other people who are doing things, really incredible like that. And so I went home and I just started digging into God and just started digging into the things he had for me. And I saw a video that changed my life by Todd White called Lifestyle Christianity. And if we have time, I want to play that for you guys today. I watched Lifestyle Christianity and it took about till the end of the video. And I started to weep. I don't really like talking about crying. I'm not really good with that kind of stuff, but I did. I bawled and I asked the Lord, I said, God, how can one man have so much love for people? And I I didn't understand. I didn't understand how you could have so much compassion for people who hate you. And it was awesome. But I didn't understand. I didn't know. I didn't know, and I asked God. I said, God, I just don't know. Like, how do you love like that? And as I started to watch more videos and started understanding, and I went to the Power and Love conference, I started to see how you can have this love for people, and I didn't quite understand it. There's many men out there of God who have great faith, but they don't have what Todd White has. Todd White has faith in one other thing that I'm going to talk about today. And you can have incredible faith and see people get healed and changed. You can see that change, but to see people get sozoed, to see them get healed, delivered, saved, there's something else that you need, and that's what I'm going to transition into right now. So let me read this to you guys. I'm just going to read. You guys don't have to turn there. I'm going to start in 1 Samuel 15. I'm just going to start reading, guys. Also said to Saul, the Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. So he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. He said how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek. I'll have to get somebody to pronounce that perfectly for me. Amalek, thank you. And utterly destroyed all they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox, sheep, camel, and donkey. So Saul gathered the people together, numbered them, and blah, 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 blah. We'll just go down. He gathered soldiers and people. And it says here, and Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. He also took Agag, or I guess that's it, Agag, king of Amalek, of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lambs, and all that was good, and were unwilling to utterly destroy them. But everything despised and worthless, they utterly destroyed. So we see Saul here getting the word of the Lord to go take the land, destroy everything, including the king. But he spares the king and he spares the good things. But that's not what God said. He said destroy everything. Destroy absolutely everything. So we go down here a little further, and it says, and Saul said to Samuel, but I have obeyed the voice of the Lord and gone on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and brought back Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord your God. So he kept these things as a sacrifice to the Lord. So it sounds really good, but he didn't obey. And so it says here, so Samuel said, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice. So I don't want to focus really on the aspect of obeying right now. I want to focus on the aspect that the Lord has greater delight in sacrifice than burnt offerings. So I want to move to the scripture, Hosea 6:6. And once again, I'm just going to read it, guys, because I just want to get going. It says, for I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. Mercy here would be more literally translated kindness, faithfulness, loyalty. Those are, Strong's dictionary terms for that word. So it says, for I desire, I just like using the word kindness, for I desire kindness and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. So I'm going to jump now to in Matthew. Hang on one moment, guys. I'll let you know what it is. Matthew 9:13. I'm going to read another passage here, if I can get there. I'm almost there. So, all right. So, yeah, and I'm going to start a little bit ahead here. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax office, and he said to him, follow me. So he arose and followed him. Now it happened as Jesus sat at the table in the house, that behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? When Jesus heard that, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. For I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. So, mercy here in the Greek is very, very literally translated compassion. So, as we see a transition here into the New Testament and see where Jesus is actually quoting from Hosea, he's eating with the tax collectors, and the Pharisees are obviously, we've heard this many times before. They're saying, why are you eating with tax collectors? They're sinners and things like this. And Jesus is saying, I desire compassion and not sacrifice. And so this is what I wanted to get, really into with you guys. Polly, can you bring up the definition for compassion, please? I just wanted to show you guys this definition really quick, even though it's Latin, but it's still pretty cool, or based in Latin. Can you guys read that? Is that text a little small? So, compassion here is deep awareness of the sufferings of another coupled with the wish to relieve it. Go down one more, Polly, for me. A feeling of distress and pity for the suffering or misfortune of another, often including the desire to alleviate it. Go down one more time for me. A feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for someone struck by misfortune, accompanied by a desire to alleviate the suffering. Mercy. Can you go back to the first one, Polly? Deep awareness of the suffering of another, coupled with the wish to relieve it. So, we see the definition of compassion here, and I believe it says right before it here, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. So, he's eating with tax collectors, and so he's seeing these people as sick. I don't even know if they're physically ill, but I think he's seeing something here through compassion, that he's seeing here that he needs to relieve something in the tax collectors. Let's do one more thing. Go to the next page. It says COM dash. Okay, so we're going to break this down a little bit. Compassion. I think everybody has a pretty good definition of what passion means. So go down for me, please, Polly. A little more. Keep on going. I'm sorry. Go up. I'm sorry about that. I missed it. It was up at the top there. Okay, there it is. Com, a prefix occurring in loan words from Latin, where it is and its variance meant with, together with, and denoted joint or simultaneous action, partnership, union. So I want to just break down this word compassion really quick. You've heard of the word commission. Literally, we can define commission as, Jesus, commissions us. It's to be in union with his mission. So I want to show you that compassion is to be in union in relationship to his passion. And so we know what God's passion is when we read the definition of compassion. It shows what God's passion was to alleviate people who needed him. And he's eating with tax collectors, guys. It doesn't say he's eating with handicapped or horribly ill people. It doesn't say he's eating with children or the poor. It doesn't even say he's eating with poor. He's eating with rich people, very wealthy people. So, yeah, tax collectors were absolutely hated. And so what I see here is the heart of a person who is purely, heart of God, purely compassionate and passionate for the lost. He saw everyone, even the rich. They needed something. And I ask myself, are we in union with the passion of God? Are we in union? Am I in union with the passion of God? Am I in union with this passion? Can I look at every person on this walk and be completely filled with compassion for them, because I know that they're hurting and they're lost. And it's not just the poor. It's not just, the people who it's everyone. I mean, can I have compassion for the rapist? I'm just saying. I'll be honest, if I saw a rapist and I knew what he did, and then I saw him, doing something, I'd probably punch him until he couldn't bleed anymore. I'm just saying that's how I feel about those things. But Jesus loved unconditionally, and he had this compassion for everyone, no matter what their thing was. And I want us to be in union with that passion. I want myself to be in union with that. I believe Todd White carries this. I believe Todd White carries this, and I believe this is why he will be one of the great. You'll hear stories someday, I believe, about Todd White and his amazing outreaches and what he does. And right now he's a little bit lesser known, but that's just because he's doing it the right way. He's living a lifestyle of Christianity, because every time he sees a person, regardless of their state, if they are in pain, he wants to alleviate it, because he's in union with the passion of God. He's in union with God's mercy. And he wants to see that freed. And so if we want to see, I believe, breakthrough in our outreach, I think we have to be in union with God's passion, and we have to be compassionate for the lost. I can have a whole lot of faith, guys. I have a fair amount of faith, I would say. I would say I have a really, I think I'm doing pretty good, but my compassion could always increase, because when I'm fueled by compassion, there's nothing that can stop you then. It just can't, and it increases your faith in its action. And I will tell you guys, when I'm filled with compassion for people, things just start happening. I'll be honest, the day I watched that video, I remember very clearly having all these opportunities just appear in front of my eyes. And it was just like, whoa, what's this? I'm not even trying anymore. And I think when we become in union with God in that way, and when we have that compassion for people, things will just happen. They'll just happen. And you'll just be walking through the supermarket, and you won't have to try to look anymore. Even though I do look, I always look, I'm always looking. I feel like things just come about. They just happen, because God knows that the compassion, the love that you have for people will be the right thing that they need. God, I don't think, this is kind of tough, but God doesn't just want to heal people. He wants to heal, absolutely, but he just doesn't want to heal. That's what sozo is. That's what saved is. He wants to deliver and save, and he does that through love. So I think it's so much so that I can see a whole bunch of people healed, but it's nothing special if I'm not love, if there isn't love attached to that, So, and that's where I think that compassion comes in, and when you're filled with that compassion, that heart. So, we have a good amount of time. Today, we're going to watch Lifestyle Christianity. It's an hour long. And I want you guys to watch and notice two things. I want you to notice the compassion that Todd has. And he'll throw some pretty intense words out. I mean, he's an awesome guy. He loves people, but he's got a burden on his heart to see the bride become what it's supposed to become. And I want you to see his compassion, and I also want you to see his passion, the passion he has, and how he is in union. So I'm going to go up and play the video, guys, and for an hour we'll chill and watch a video, okay? Yes. It's true. What'd you guys think? What does everybody think? Who wants Todd White to come to the school? I'm working on it. Okay, so I'm going to give the mic to every person in here. I'm going to pass it around, and I want you in just one or two sentences, just real quick. Tell me what's the most you got out of today.
So you got to start with me. Awesome. I do have a lot of things written down. I just have to pick. It says God is the universe. God is the God of the universe who lives in me. So it was kind of like just restating that, who can stand against you if God's with you?
About the love, the passion that he has for people.
That's enough said right there. I mean, yeah.
2 words, rise up.
Rise up.
It's like he's real. He talks about himself every place he's been instead of like most Christians talk about other things. But he's like, this is where I was, man. This is what I did. And this is what God's done now, And it's like they get wowed because of him being so honest and open and of who he is.
It's like we only have to have the faith. It's not the person. I always feel like I have to say stuff and bring an atmosphere in and just forget it, don't talk, just live it. That's it.
Wow, so much. I mean, I don't know. I just thought, wow, it's really cool that he's raised his daughter who's 5 years old and who's more on fire than some of us. Wow, that's what being a good parent is about. That was just, I could watch that again. I think that this is going to be a pivotal thing for me. Wow, that was really good.
Awesome.
I just want that love that he's talking about, that love that Jesus loved to give to other people.
Absolutely.
That we have no right to have a bad day.
And we will still have bad days. We will have them, but he looks at them in a sense that he doesn't see it that way. Yeah. So.
Mine's kind of a phrase, but I just don't feel led. Well, I understand that, but you'll pass 1,000 before you reach the one. Burn. And why would you hide this? Why would you hide who you are inside? Your city can be lit with just one person. Persecution isn't here yet, but it's coming. Be ready. Sorry.
I just got out of it that, we make this thing so complicated, and it's just simple. Just go out and live it. You know what I mean? Just go out and just, even if you just show an act of kindness to somebody, even if you just go up and say, hi, how are you doing? How's your day? And just, I was in Wendy's a couple days ago, and this little kid was with his father, and all of a sudden, the father was ordering the order, and the kid just ran away. And I watched him where he went, and the dad looked down, and he's like, where'd he go? And I'm like, he's right over there. And he goes, thanks, man. And I'm just like, no problem, man. God bless you,
Simple things. All right. So, I can't follow Todd White, but what I can do is I can ask you guys a question. How do you find that you will get to the compassion that he has? How do you find you would get there? Do you know how to get there? Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she just said prayer to the people who are watching the video. She said prayer. You know, anything else? Oh, Allie and Bonnie, go ahead. Just talk. I'll repeat it.
Well, it's like our identity is like in the womb of heaven. Like that's who we are, and once we
Never mind.
our identity is in the womb of heaven. And so, just walking into who we are. And, when he mentioned that we don't have to live a day without being like sad or grumpy, that's because it's like all a lie from Satan. Like, as soon as we receive Christ, we can walk in this way of supernatural royalty because we are that. Like, that's our identity. And like, if to go out of this sanctuary and like just continue our lives as normal, that's like, it's impossible. Like, it just is.
Yeah. Okay, I just got to do one more because we only have like a couple minutes left before we got to change here. So go ahead.
Just, like he had said a few times, just, ask, hey, I want this, Lord. And, pray for the Lord to give you passion and burning desire to do what he would have you do.
So if there's one thing I learned from the Bethel School of Supernatural Evangelism was when you, in order to, have this heart for like evangelism and like a heart for love, a heart for loving people, they say you'd have to be filled. You have to be filled every day. You cannot go a day without being filled. And I'm learning this more and more and more in my walk with God, that if I go a day without getting filled, and actually God spoke to me something that I found was really funny, but he said to me, he goes, an encounter a day keeps the devil away. And I said, yeah, I mean, I need at least an encounter. I need at least that. And so what I would tell you guys, and this is what I've experienced, and this has changed my life, is not only should we, with as much passion as we can, go out and reach the lost, we need to have that much passion towards absolutely reaching towards Christ. We know that. But this is my experience in my personal time with Christ, in those moments when it's quiet. I would ask you to seek the presence of God. Like, seek it hard. Like, I mean, like, don't leave the room until you experience an encounter. I mean an experience. I'm not talking, guys, about, oh, that was a good verse today that I read. I mean, I felt the presence of God here, and I felt a filling of my spirit every day. And so for me, in my whenever your daily, devotion is, whenever that is, get quiet before God. Get quiet. You don't even have to say anything. I know that sounds a little crazy, but I'm serious. Just listen. He wants us to have hearing ears. And I'm telling you, as you start experiencing the heart of the Father, you'll start knowing how much he loves you, and then it's just easy to love people. It's just so easy to do it. And that's just my experience, because I would find that when I would come out of those incredible encounters with God and I was like, whoa, like I've just experienced you. I've felt like I've just touched heaven right now. That I would come out of that and love would just pour forth, and it would be so easy to just go out and just, get your groceries that day and, hit a couple people while you're doing it. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that. All right, guys? Okay, next class.